This is Brain Software Podcast 105, and it's a good one. Woo-hoo. Today, we discuss the power of working with your own ego states, research versus training, and much more.
Just let me get this door open, and I'll show you the radishes. These damn things contain acetylene. Take it away, Dave.
Welcome to Brain Software, Scroll. I'm Dave Ambrose, man, people's physicist, and I'm brooming my way through this hurricane, Scroll. Acceleration on these tight turns is awesome, man. That's why I took up science instead of art, Scroll. Over to you, Chris. I gotta fly this broom out of here.
Welcome to today's gut shot episode of Brain Software, where the lamps are lit and the table has an extra place for you. We're here, and you're there, and all is well in Royston Vasey. But we really need to ask the question, whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know? These are days of victory! So welcome to the center of the somnambulistic studio. A man who is the second best backgammon player of all time.
Damn.
A man who loves lobster and crab.
Bring on the crustaceans.
And eats only one meal per day.
For now.
Sometimes. Mike Mandel.
Yes, Chris. One Meal Mike is here. How's it going, bro?
It is going well. We have not recorded a podcast in a while, despite the fact that we continue to release them on our regular every 2 week schedule.
There's a lot of releasing going on.
Sometimes we have to record a couple in advance if we're on holidays, etc. And I just got back from almost 3 weeks being in the Maritimes on a road trip with my family,
which is Nova
amazing.
Scotia, New Brunswick, Cape Breton Island. Amazing.
Yeah, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia and Cape Breton, New Brunswick, and of course traveling through Quebec in order to get there and get home. So it was just amazing. And I was saying to you earlier over coffee, it's weird when you step away from work. We're essentially a two-man show, this business, right? So I do a lot of the administrative, all the technical details of this business, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, and a phone call's coming in.
Really comes out.
That's actually the mechanic that's working on my car right now calling. Anyway, the trip was amazing, and it took me quite a while to get back into the interest level of wanting to work again because I was enjoying being on vacation so much. But it only lasted 3-4 days, and as I joked with you, I said, "Well, I was worried what would happen if I didn't want to get back to work at all."
We would have.
One of us has to be interested in working, right?
I'll take that to heart. Buddy, let's talk about something you just said. I'm the second best backgammon player in the world. 3 years ago, I won the championship in Minden, Ontario, which is run by Michael C. Anthony and just destroyed him. And he said, I've got to get back to the books and study up on this. Well, this time he heartily destroyed me. He said he hadn't been practicing. He's clearly lying. I did not win a single match. Not once. I just got absolutely ruined.
Oh, that is just terrible, Mike, that you were destroyed as badly as you were.
Let's not talk about it.
All right. Well, so what do you want to move on to? You want to talk about...
I think you've got to talk about the stuff we have coming up. Let's deal with that quickly so we can get into some content here.
Okay. So we have a lot of stuff coming up. In fact, we have HypnoThoughts Live, which happens in
about
August.
A month from now.
Yeah. What are the dates? It's the 20... Whatever the weekend is, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think it's the 24th, 25th, and 26th of August.
Yep.
That's at the Orleans Hotel in Las Vegas. And you can always find more details about what we're doing at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/HT Live 2018.
Perfect.
HT Live 2018. And we're doing a 1-day mindscaping certification course on the Thursday, which would be the 23rd of August.
Still a little bit of room, but that's pretty packed, isn't it?
It is. It's getting busy. And unfortunately, as of July 4th, the discount on tickets is no longer available. So anyone who is signing up for the HT Live conference at this point needs to pay the full price. Us and everybody else who is able to offer bundled discounts can no longer do so.
They shut them down.
Richard and Scott, they need to organize the conference. They need their numbers, so they have to basically shut down all promotions at that point.
Still a great time to go to Vegas. It's warm. It's fun. It's
still a really good price for the conference. And like I said, we don't get paid anything to tell you that. This is a conference that we love going to. We don't get paid a dime for people who come to the conference. Of course, if they come to our pre-conference class, then yes, we are involved in that, but not for the main conference itself, which is what we highly recommend you come to, even if you can only spare the 3 days.
Best hypnosis conference in the world. Certainly the biggest.
Do it. Then we have in September coming up James Tripp from hypnosiswithouttrance.com. He's coming to Toronto. That is September 22nd and 23rd. And he's teaching a 2-day wicked training on hypnotic phenomena and hypnotic change work. We are doing a graphology training the Friday before his weekend training. That's the
So it's 3 days in a row. You can come for graphology, stay overnight, and then do 2 days with James Tripp, all in the same room.
Yep, and it's all on our events page at mikemandelhypnosis.com/events. And then the only thing coming up after that in Toronto is the November 5-day Architecture of Hypnosis live training.
Half sold out.
Oh, way more than that.
Way more than that. Yeah.
Here's what usually happens. We go to Vegas in August. People become interested in what's going on, and then the class is quickly sold out at the end of August or in very early September.
So if you want to come out for November,
recommend jumping on it. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're waiting until May next year.
Right.
Okay, buddy.
All right.
I want to talk to you, first of all, about the Think Tank word of the day, which I spun the Think Tank by Savo Bokacek. We got a random word, and we're going to apply it to the podcast and our day. And this one, Chris, was chemical.
Chemical.
What do you make of that?
You have not prepped me to think about this at all.
Not.
So I'm just jumping on this.
Yeah.
And chemical, to me, I think about chemistry and chemical reactions and how things can change. How something like, I'm trying to remember what chemicals in chemistry class in grade 11.
Like pouring hydrofluoric acid in a glass bottle and having it melt in front of your eyes.
Yes. I was looking for something even more involving flames and maybe big
heat. Exothermic reactions.
But the idea that you can mix two seemingly stable and calm substances, you put them together. Another example might be taking bleach and throwing acid in it. Well, a hypochlorite mixed with an acid, you're going to get chlorine gas, right?
And then likewise, though, you can also combine two things like sodium with chlorine and you get table salt. So chlorine is lethal, but when you mix it with sodium, it's fine.
Yeah, that's exactly true. You can take things that are...
How do we apply this? To me, it says... if you really think of chemistry, when I did a course years ago, it said, think of chemistry as the behavior of electrons, because all chemical reactions happen with electrons and electron shells.
Thinking about it.
So electrons are so freaking tiny, and the tiniest thing can have this immense shift. My question is, what are the tiny things that we can do that long-term will cause immense shifts in our lives?
Yeah, I really love that, because your idea of taking two volatile compounds, mix them together, boom, you get something calm and stable like salt.
Yeah. Which isn't as bad for you as people say.
Which you need, too.
Right.
You need in your life salt, right? Speaking of which, did you not just buy a copy of a wicked book?
I did. It has not arrived yet. So my wife is skeptical, but I'm going to say, here's the science.
I'm going to throw it out there right now. For those of you concerned about, salt and blood pressure, pick up a book called The Salt Fix. It's by Dr. James DiNicolantonio. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah, he's got all the research.
Yeah.
Okay, so this chemical is talking about the tiny changes that can lead to immense changes and how even nasty things can be made innocuous. One of the discussion points I want to talk to you about was we got a really nice email from one of our online students, Gary.
Yes, I remember this.
And he was using the rewind technique, which is classic NLP, where you are taking an event that has caused trauma, fear, anger, sadness, whatever, and you are watching it dissociated on a screen and watching yourself watch it, double dissociation. Imagine you're in a theater, looking at yourself in the theater, watching the screen, or doing it with a TV, whatever. And the idea is you take this event, you run it forwards in really grainy, really black and white, really small, so there's almost no emotional charge.
And when you say run it forwards, you're taking
the event.
Traditionally, you're taking something that is a phobia.
Right, or it could be a bad event.
It's typically
something that causes anger, anxiety. So you run the negative emotion from before it starts right till it's over and you're safe again. Forwards in grainy black and white. So you're watching yourself watching it.
Yeah, you're watching yourself watching on the screen.
And when it's over, you jump into the screen in your imagination in full color, full 3D, and run the event backwards with you in it, associated into it, and run it backwards in about 2 seconds. And by doing this, you get a kinesthetic visual dissociation where you remember the visual, but the negative emotion disappears. Now, it is noteworthy that the rewind technique will remove positive emotions too.
Yeah, so you don't want to use it on good stuff.
No, you definitely don't want to use it on good stuff.
Traditionally called the fast phobia cure in NLP. So for those of you Googling it, rewind technique or fast phobia cure, you'll probably find information about it.
And those in our academy, it's in the online academy. But Gary's question was, do I have research on this? on its efficacy. And I had to say, no, I don't. And he asked me about this, and I said, but the bottom line is, it's what Tony Robbins said years ago. It's a great thing that he said. He said, you can use everything without understanding everything. So I can use a computer, I can use an iPad without having a clue as to how it all works and the intricacy. I can understand enough to use it. Likewise with the rewind technique, because Chris and I are not researchers. My friend Arthur Perlini is a researcher in hypnosis. He did a lot of experiments with polygraphs, with lie detectors, with the legendary Nick Spanos. That's what they did, was research to get all the information to quantify and figure out. We're not researchers. We are trainers. We teach people to use this stuff. So even though we don't have the research on it, it does work. So do your own research and see how well you can make this work.
When you're saying things like, I can use stuff without understanding it, I was thinking immediately of Bluetooth. That's a good, we all use Bluetooth. We don't have to understand exactly how the modulation works over the 2.4 gigahertz wireless
There's a spider
carrier.
hanging from your light there. Don't touch him. Leave him alone.
I'll leave him be. So, I don't have to understand how the brakes work in my car.
Yes, as long as you can properly apply them, which is a very interesting question. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about, Chris, I got those amazing ego state cards, and they were called interactive cards, not but interactive cards. I bought them online because we've talked in many podcasts and in our live webinars how we are all a compendium of sub-personalities, ego states, parts, whatever you want to call them with your model. The best model I heard before was the classroom with the teacher absent and a bunch of little kids, say 30, 40 kids in the class. Some are whooping it up, screaming. Some are throwing spitballs. One standing in the corner hasn't spoken in years. A couple of them are friends. Some have their own little group. Some are the sports freaks. And they're all sub-personalities. Whichever one sits in the teacher's chair is the one that is executive and running the show. Now,
so when the teacher needs to leave the classroom and says, you, Johnny, come and take over for a while, kid is an executive. And that's the ego state that's executive. And we are all like this classroom of different ego states.
Yes. Now realize that the one that is executive, it is actually neurologically, electrically connected in your brain. These aren't psychological things. These are hardwired into your brain. And look at Watkins & Watkins, Paul Finnairn, and Gordon Emerson for more info. Now, here's the new model that I much prefer, because I thought that was a great one. Think of a house, a single floor house with a basement.
Okay.
On the main floor is a living room.
Gotcha.
And in that living room are the 5 to 15 ego states that you use on a given day.
Okay, in the living room.
And they're just hanging out
because they're in the living space where you spend most of your time.
Now there's a basement, and down in that basement are other ego states you don't use so often. And then off from that, there's a bomb shelter. And that's where vaded ego states are, wounded, petrified ego states that need to be nurtured and brought out. So let's say someone knocks at the door of this house. One of the ego states in the living room goes to answer the door. Now, if it's the IRS, a tax department, maybe it's your accountant ego state's going to answer. If it's your best friend coming over for a Friday night, it might be your jester joker ego state answers. So does that make sense as the model?
I love that
It's
model.
a great one.
It's a more colorful and fleshed out and fun model.
And this came from the book that I bought along with these interactive cards that I highly recommend therapists who are listening to this, get a deck of these cards and do your own self-work. Now, here's the self-work I did, and I think this is going to be a blessing or an encouragement to someone. One of the problems I've had, and Chris will verify this, is Chris has got
Which problem?
So many to choose from. The one of stabbing my friend with a knife, you bastard. So we'll edit the word bastard out.
No, we won't.
No, we won't. But anyway, Chris will verify that. I was attempting to get my weight down. At my worst, I'd blown up to 189 and change. I said, I'm not hitting 190. That's quite a while ago now. But my weight
was many years ago.
Yeah, but I've been hovering in the mid 170s, which is 174 is the high end of normal for me.
Yeah, and just for perspective, Mike is about
5'10".
the same height as me, 5'10".
Now, I did not want to stay in the 170s. I wanted to get down to a healthier mid 160s.
Right, real lean fighting weight.
Up and down, couple of pounds up, couple down. And you said to me, too many cheat meals.
Yeah.
I was eating too many carbs, have bread with a meal, have too much rice, or anyway. And I grudgingly realized he was right. Chris gave me this amazing idea to jumpstart it by a short-term fast. But here's the bottom line. Here's what's enabled me to stay with this for over a month. I got these ego state cards out. I laid them on the floor, and I removed all the ones that resonated with me and pushed all the others aside. And then I went through them, and I started placing them in groups, cards that seemed to go together. And I found something very interesting. There were 2 ego state cards that were together all the time. One of them is a pig sitting on a pile of food eating a sundae. And the name they gave it was the happy pig. Just wants to eat, wants to feel good, eating without restraint. The other one looks like a superhero. Around him are someone exercising, someone eating right, someone, supplements.
He is fitness man.
I called him wellness man.
Wellness man.
It was even beyond fitness.
That's nice.
And this was a conflict. I looked at these cards, these two, and I knew this was a conflict within me.
It's like the two kids in the classroom or the two people in the living room fighting with each other.
So Happy Pig just wanted to eat, and he would hog the executive, and wellness man wouldn't be able to get in.
Yeah.
So what I did was I dissociated from them. You go to self. Self is you in a warm, accepting, non-critical way outside of your ego states. This essence that sits in the middle. And I went into light hypnosis and just was self, non-evaluative, just polite to both these ego states. I hold the card in front of me, so I'm dissociating from Happy Pig. And I thank Happy Pig for enjoying food so much.
Yeah, thank you, Happy Pig.
He loves it. Thank you. You're doing a great job in making my meals and my wine just wonderful.
Yummy and delicious.
Yes.
Satisfying.
And then I put it down and I picked up the other one, Wellness Man. And I said, thank you so much for working hard to help me get in shape. And thank that one. You got to thank and acknowledge them. Now I spoke to them and said, there's a conflict here. Happy Pig, I want you to enjoy all your meals as much as you want. But Wellness Man is going to decide when you eat and what is the content of the food. And then you can come in and eat all you want of that and enjoy it. And it agreed. Then I said to Wellness Man, will you take responsibility for me exercising, and will you restrain Happy Pig as his friend so when he does get to eat, it'll be amazing? I got agreement from this one. I said, now you guys shake hands or hug. I put the two cards together. That was it.
That
nice. Was it. And Heather had to admit everything has changed. I'm not drawn towards junk food. I'm not drawn towards the carbs. And I'm down into the 160s now and feeling freaking awesome. I had two ego states out of whack, in conflict, negotiated with them through the cards by holding the cards external to myself. And the result has been amazing. Comments from you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I see the difference in you. Like, this is not a video podcast, so you guys can't see us, but obviously Mike was not a heavy guy, but he just wanted to hit a new level of personal wellness and being lean and strong and happy. And the lean part, he just didn't feel happy enough with the level of leanness. And now you hit a new level of leanness, which is amazing.
And totally amazing how the ego states are just working it themselves now. There's no conflict.
And now we're going to move on from this. This is not a podcast all about wellness or diet or exercise, but I was listening to a podcast last night. It's a fairly new one called The Drive with Peter Attia, who's a Canadian doctor. He lives in San Diego. He splits up his time between San Diego and New York, but he is a wellness longevity doctor. He's well known. Dr. Peter Attia. I want to say it's two T's. Anyway, the podcast is called The Drive, and he had
You recommend that?
He had an Ask Me Anything podcast episode, which was essentially a Q&A style. So he integrated a bunch of questions that people had asked over Twitter into one episode where he answered them all. And he talked a lot about his experience. For about 3 solid years, he was very strictly on a ketogenic diet, which for those of you listening just means keeping your carbohydrate intake to about between 25 and 50 grams at most per day. It's quite a restrictive diet. He did it for 3 years, felt great. But one of the questions was, well, why'd you stop doing it?
Yeah.
And he said, after 3 years, I really missed this curry dish that I used to make a lot in med school. And I loved it. It was served on a bed of rice, but it was all these amazing stir-fry vegetables in a curry. And it was just phenomenal. I just really missed it. And so this kind of blends with another point about whatever it is that you are doing to make a change. If you're not enjoying the process,
Chris,
you will not maintain.
You won't stay with it. No.
And that's why Dr. Peter Attia gave up the ketogenic diet. Now, he hasn't gone back to just eating crap.
Right.
But he has become a little less restrictive, so he will allow himself to have rice and potato and things like that. But what his simple rule is, no junk food.
Yeah.
Just eat real food, eat actual food.
Eat food your grandparents would have recognized.
Instead of stuff that came out of a package, macaroni, cheese, et cetera, leave that stuff alone.
Brilliant.
Anyway, the other final point before we move on is, he says the most difficult thing to do is to avoid, say, certain foods or behaviors, could be anything, when you're surrounded by that in your environment.
Oh, right.
So the easiest way to avoid eating crap
not go near it
is to not be around it. Don't buy it.
Throw
don't
it
keep
out,
it in your house. Exactly. He talked about a buddy who came over and had a box of granola, and he used half of it for his breakfast and left it at Peter's house. Peter immediately grabbed it, threw it in the garbage. Because I don't want the temptation. I love granola. It's
thinking.
awesome.
I've said to my wife many times, I just had 2 chocolate chip cookies. I said, honey, if they weren't in the drawer, you wouldn't go out and buy them.
You wouldn't
just
be
to
thinking
have
about
2.
them.
Yeah,
so just destroy it.
Let's talk about that's a good one, Chris. I want to talk about Bob Burns, our friend in Scotland. Bob Burns. He came up with something called the Swan a few years ago, and I'd heard of it, and we like Bob. We get along really well with him. He's an excellent hypnotist. He's worked with thousands of people with a tremendous track record, and he says he's not a hypnosis trainer, but he certainly is, and he's a good one too. And he was good enough to send me, we did a trade with each other. I sent him Mindscaping, or we did.
Right.
And he sent me The Swan on DVD. And amazingly, it came from Britain and it still plays on NTSC, which is unusual because I'm always let down by that. The Swan is really, really cool. It's a half-hour DVD, but it's pretty pithy and meaty. It really shows some interesting stuff. When Chris and I do hypnosis, we sometimes work with ideomotor signals. And remember, idea produces motion. That's ideomotor. Yeah. We set up maybe the first finger of the left hand to be yes or no, and the first finger of the right hand to be yes or no. And the idea is you can communicate directly with the unconscious through the signals. Leslie Lacron being really the father of ideomotor signaling. And a lot of it was done with David Cheek, MD, who has used ideomotor signaling to a huge degree and proven its usefulness. Now, Bob Burns has taken it to the next level, and I don't say that lightly. The Swan, he basically gets the person to rest their elbow on the arm of their chair. They're not even in a trance when he does this. Has their hand upright, and he can tell it's just sort of hanging there like the shape of a swan.
What's the Jim Carrey movie where he turns his arm into a claw as a joke towards you? The claw is going to get you.
Except it's relaxed. It's relaxed. And you can tell it's relaxed because the first finger will be higher than the other fingers. That's what he says. So he just starts talking to the unconscious or a specific ego state, and he sets up an anchor on the side of the person's knee. He'll just tap the side of their knee. He warns them that when I tap there, he says, I'm talking to that part of you. I'm not talking to you. Which is really nice. And then he says, is there a part of you that has this problem and would be willing to deal with it today? If that's the case, just give your hand a little twitch. And the person just is wide awake. They wait, and the hand twitches and freaks them out.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing is these ideomotor signals really do happen. And
on their own.
Watch them happen and go, whoa, I didn't do that.
Yeah. And he'll say to them, how certain are you out of 100% that you're not just doing this to please me? The person, no, I'm not doing this at all. It did it on its own. Then he asks the hand if it can turn and face him, the swan.
And that's when it becomes the swan, because it turns towards you.
Then he gets it to wave at them.
Yeah.
And he'll set up the entire ideomotor stuff. He uses this as an inroad. Now think of it, Chris, from our model.
Anything that assumes trance causes trance.
The swan is a cataleptic limb.
Of course it is.
And he's using this as a beautiful, really clever inroad where it becomes, in and of itself, a means of producing heteroaction and causing hypnosis to work. So I applaud Bob Burns. I think he's done great work with this.
You're getting, in a sense, this waking trance, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like when we use the clench
Whatever
induction.
that is.
And if somebody opens their eyes and stares at their hands and they can't open that hand.
Yeah.
Because it seems locked. Or in James Tripp's case, he does what he calls hypnosis without trance,
right.
And might have somebody's hand stuck to a table.
Right.
The person's never closed their eyes, or a hand stuck to a beer mug in a bar, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
All of these things are because we're approaching trance backwards.
Yes, that's right. We're producing the phenomena and getting the trance by default. But anyway, if you're a therapist, a hypnotist, if you've not seen The Swan, contact Bob Burns. You'll find him online. And I recommend this is a great method.
We'll put a link in the show notes to those interactive cards and also to The Swan.
Yeah, I've given a very simplified version of this, but it's well worth looking into.
There's a reason why every time we go to a hypnosis conference, people are interested in taking Bob's class on this, because it's a great technique.
And, Chris, there's a very interesting point here. I had a martial arts master years ago. I won't say who it is, but you know who it is. And when Hoist Gracie came to Toronto, and then Hickson Gracie, I missed the Hoist Gracie training, but I wanted to go see Hickson for a weekend and train with who was then at the time the toughest man in the world. And my martial arts master refused to go And the reason he wouldn't go, here's what he said. He said, there's nothing he can learn. He said he'd kill Hicks and Gracie. Now, the bottom line is he would have been destroyed. But to go to this, his ego was so fragile to even attend. He's saying that there's something he could learn from him, and he couldn't handle that. He wanted the students to think he knew everything about everything. But honestly, guys, Chris and I look at this the opposite way around. Every trainer, every system, martial arts, hypnosis has something to offer. You can find that gem if you look. And that's why we study with Melissa Tiers, and we study with James Tripp, and we study with Carl Smith and all these greats and Bob Burns. We want to learn their great stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's the best way. Keep an open mind when you're learning. Learn from everybody. We tell our students, we're not locking you in here. Go and learn from the other great
Absolutely.
people. Yeah.
And you'll see when we bring someone to Toronto to do a training, we're doing that primarily because we know we want to take the class.
Well, yeah, it's brilliant. Chris and I thought we want to study with so-and-so. Carl Smith want to study with James Tripp or Melissa Tiers. Why should we travel there and pay? Well, we can just bring them to Toronto and we can study in Toronto and take their class.
It's a great way to mix business with pleasure,
well for
right?
everybody.
So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
How are you for time, buddy?
We're at about 25 minutes.
Okay, so
where do you want to go from here?
I want to just talk to you about a thing I found the other day, which is why does modern music suck? And I think you'll find this interesting psychologically. I read a lot online about this and watched some videos lately, and it makes sense. So much pop music right now is bland crap, and you go into a store, it's playing this, it sounds terrible. Well, this is being evaluated, Chris. Apart from the fact that it is mass produced just to get your attention really quickly, they do a couple of interesting things. They add two things to it. You're going to hear this again and again now, I've told you. The first thing is called the millennial whoop. So many songs go, whoa, whoa. It'll have that in it somewhere.
Yeah.
Whoa, 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 over and over. The reason why is it sounds familiar because so many other songs have the millennial whoop in them.
Okay.
And the other thing they do is they mess with the compression. So the compression means that as you know, the loud noises are made softer and the soft noises are made louder.
Yeah,
it's a great way to play guitar with a lot of compression.
It reduces the ratio between high volume and low volume.
So it raises all the low volume, so it sounds louder even if it isn't. It raises the drums, the hi-hat, everything. So it's really in your face. So when you go somewhere and this music is commanding your attention and you're hearing this, whoa, whoa, some variation of that whoop, it sounds familiar right away. And the interesting thing is, because you keep hearing it when you go into malls and this stuff is fed everywhere, so you're exposed to it. More and more shopping malls, you cannot walk in silence now. Even farmers markets have this crap playing. And what happens is something called the mere exposure effect, MEE. That's the actual term. It means just because it starts to sound familiar, we think we like it.
We think we've heard it before,
and we
too.
Think we like it.
We like it. Yeah, it's familiar.
Remember I said to you years ago, I bought a Radiohead record because, I say record, recording, short form for recording. But it was Kid A, and it was 5 stars on all these different sources. I freaking hated it. Michael C. Anthony turned to me in the car and he said, you got hosed. This is crap. 5 plays in, I realized it was one of the best I'd ever heard because familiarity kicked in. So the question is, since familiarity kicks in right away with the millennial whoop, we think we like it already because it reminds us of other songs.
Sort of like Hypnosis.
It very much is, Chris.
So one band that, of course, we've talked about that isn't like this at all
would be U2.
Would be although some, I will admit, I love
That's
U2's
funny
music.
in 1,000 different ways.
It's original music. It never deals with this whole whoa thing.
No,
but there are times when I've bought albums and I've had to listen to them a few times before I really went, wow, I like this because I could appreciate the uniqueness of the music. But I was going to say Greta Van Fleet.
Oh, a perfect example. Now, Greta Van Fleet sounds like Led Zeppelin, but they're not Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
They've got a Zeppelin style, but they're doing different material.
And it's not at all something that seems familiar to me.
No.
Other than that it has a bit of resemblance to that older Zeppelin music. But it's amazing.
And I applaud what they're doing. Yeah. They're an excellent band, and I applaud what Greta Van Fleet is doing because they're rescuing music from this endless,
Dursative.
and dursative crap. And they're bringing a whole new generation of kids to classic rock, which is just amazing.
Right.
Anyway, I've ranted enough about that.
We would love to see more modern musicians staying away from the bag of Picthos.
Yes. Oh, good invocation of that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Chris, I think you should bring us our empowering question now.
Are we going to do the empowering question
let's
now?
do that.
And then we're not going to do any 100 Days of Awesome
I don't think
summaries?
we have time.
Okay.
We gotta get moving.
We're going to get on with the podcast then with the empowering question. And in the next one, we promise you that in episode 106, we're going to continue with our theme of the 100 Days of Awesome, which has been going on for a while now. And it is amazing as a way of helping you improve your life. Also through empowering questions in a way. So here's today's empowering question for episode 105.
Questions, in fact.
What still needs to be done to have a great 2018? And what will I do now to begin to make that happen? What is still undone in my life to create a great year? And what massive action will I take in that direction now?
Beautiful. That's a great one. Sometimes we say you, sometimes we say I, but the point is it's the power behind the refocusing of the reticular activating system. Well, I've got an empowering Meta 5 for you, Chris. It's not a long one. It's called Niagara College and the Shoulder Spin Blood Choke.
Oh, I love this story. I think I know it.
A friend of mine who I worked with many years ago, we'll call him Bob because that was his name, another Brit. We were on the road together for 6 years and traveled all over the place working. Me doing hypnosis and mentalism and him doing some memory feats and talking backwards and so on. He actually won the Guinness Book of World Records record for some of his feats. But he used to get in a lot of fights. He was a stocky guy, and he'd have a bit to drink, and he used to punch guys out. And not bad. He wasn't a bad guy, but he just wouldn't back down from anyone. He'd always wind up hurting his hand. So once I showed him how to do a shoulder spin blood choke, vascular neck restraint, how to spin someone, lock them up, hold them tight, and then the person goes unconscious. We was
Safely.
very safely.
Supposedly.
He was excited about this. So he couldn't wait to use it. He was in Germany in a bar, and he was talking to this nice girl. This guy leans over and blows smoke in her face. Bob spins the guy, chokes him. The guy goes unconscious. He comes back from Germany, says, "This is amazing. I don't even have to hurt my hands anymore." Then he's at Tim Hortons donut shop, gets in an argument with the guy in line, spins the guy, puts a blood choke on. The guy passes out, and Bob leaves the donut shop and says to me, "This is amazing. I don't have to hurt my hands." He's just so excited about it. Fast forward to Niagara College, Welland, Ontario. We're doing a show one night. We're doing the part of the show where he's doing his memory stuff. And we got a blackboard in front of us, and it's covered, and he's doing stuff from memory. And this guy in the audience starts yelling the numbers before Bob has a chance, like just deliberately ruining the effect. And security is lame ass, and they're sort of watching this guy ruining the act, thinking it's a comedy act, and his job is to heckle and spoil things. So we storm off stage. I'm kicking chairs out of the way. Everyone's trying to get out of me. I'm saying, I don't need this crap. I'm here to work and do a show. Bob follows me into the dressing room. There's a window in our dressing room. He's saying, "What a bunch of jerks. What a bunch." Just then, the guy who's been heckling comes to the dressing room, and he's looking at the window, mouthing off. Bob says his usual line, "I can't let it pass." Leaps up. I'm being interviewed by a reporter on why we bailed. She's very sympathetic. He bursts out into the hallway. I said to the reporter, "I'll be back in a couple of minutes." I opened the door, and the guy was already unconscious on the floor. Bob standing over him saying, "I didn't hurt my hand or anything."
That was just the most bizarre ending to a Meta 5 ever.
I know it was. Who was?
I love it. Are we going to leave this in?
Yeah, we'll leave it in.
We're not editing this out at all.
Right, go.
So thanks, everybody, for listening to Brain Software episode 105, all about ego states. Some good, some not so good. And episode 106 will be coming 2 weeks after this one. It'll be amazing. We're going to revisit some of the 100 Days of Awesome key focus topics. So remember to check out MikeMandelHypnosis.com. And I also want to announce something really cool. Check out the iPhone App Store.
Yes.
Type in Mike Mandel as your search term. That should work. Or Nuvi, N-U-V-I. We've put out our first app called Nuvi, Nominalization, Unspecified Verb Induction.
And it comes with 45 minutes of training. Free.
Comes with an awesome free bonus video course. So check it out. It's like $3 on the App Store. And have a great day. And we will see you, or you'll hear us, on the next podcast.
Thanks again.
And good night.
you push the damper in and you pull the damper out, and the smoke goes up the chimney just the same, just the same. Just hi-yi-yippee, hi-yi-yippee, and the smoke goes up the chimney just the same. Leave a verse out. Oh yeah. And you pull that damn thing out, and the smoke goes up the chimney just the same, just the same. And hi-yi-yippee, hi-yi-yippee, and the smoke goes up the chimney just the same. Leave another one out. Oh yeah. And yeah. And the smoke goes up the chimney just the same, just the same. Hi-yi-yippee, hi-yi-yippee, and the smoke goes up the chimney just the same. And again. Oh, yeah. And yeah. And the. Hi-yi-yippee, hi-yi-yippee, and the smoke goes up the chimney just the same. Oh, yeah. And yeah. And the. And the smoke goes over. Without a doubt, my fun.